In the Impact segment tonight, continuing now with our top story, the showdown with North Korea. Yesterday, National Security Advisor H.R. McMaster gave his blunt assessment about the state of the crisis.
This is a problem that has been passed down from multiple administrations. But our president, I think it's really the consensus with the president, our key allies in the region, Japan and South Korea in particular, but also the Chinese leadership, that this problem is coming to a head. And so it's time for us to undertake all actions we can, short of a military option, to try to resolve this peacefully.
Joining us now to analyze from Chicago, Ian Bremmer, president and founder of the Eurasia Group, a leading global political risk research and consulting firm. Ian, you were able to listen to Charles Krauthammer in the previous segment. I wondered if you largely agreed with what he had to say and what you think about President Trump's moves over the past 2 weeks.
Look, I think in terms of what Trump's actually accomplished so far and the intentions to try to make the Chinese pay attention, since they're the ones that have, sort of impact and influence over North Korea to the extent that anyone does, I completely agree with that. But I would say that his suggested outcome, the one peaceful plan, Finlandization, the idea that we're somehow going to turn, or China's going to turn a country with 10 nuclear weapons into a non-nuclear neutral state, I think is kind of ludicrous on its face. It would be suicidal for Kim Jong-un, so it would require active regime change. And the reason why the Chinese have been so reluctant to actually push the North Koreans is not because they're happy with what North Korea is doing. They're not. They used to be 10 years ago. They're not anymore. The reason they don't push is because they fear that the North Koreans, if they really threaten regime change, that it's going to blow up not only the regime but also the region. And that's something the Chinese are very loath to move towards. And there are politics happening in the region as well, and you paid close attention to this. I was interested to read this morning when you said that for a long time, when you go to the capitals there and you're visiting with the people that you are advising, that they didn't really bring up North Korea, but that has changed in the last few weeks. And you say that Japan is a little unhappy, and we know that South Korea has elections coming up on May 9th. So a lot of turmoil there that President Trump is having to deal with. It is. Let's be clear. This issue is coming to a head, but I mean, if Obama had a third term or if Hillary Clinton were elected, it wouldn't be coming to a head. So even though the North Koreans continue to develop their nuclear weapons capability, their ICBM capabilities and technology, their cyber capabilities, which they've used to significant effect in the last couple of years, but the administrations haven't said we've got to handle this. Now, Trump comes in and says he does, and the Japanese and the South Koreans, last week, everyone I talked to, this was issue number one, and the question was, is Trump really going to engage in military strikes? Because if he does, the countries that are at risk, not the United States, but our allies, South Korea and Japan. So I think what's really interesting here is this is truly Trump's America First policy. It's his most America First policy. It's about the United States. He wants to stop America from potentially being threatened down the road by North Korea, and if that potentially puts the Japanese and South Koreans at risk, that's less of a concern to him than it would have been other presidents. That's exactly what the Americans voted for with that foreign policy. Yeah, I thought that was interesting when I read what you wrote this morning about there's some criticism from maybe people in Trump's base who say, well, wait, this was not exactly what we signed up for. This is interventionist. But actually, I agree with you. I think that what he's saying is that I'm going to protect America first. In order to do so, I have to show a little bit of diplomatic strength here. It's a unilateral policy. It's not about... Trump never said he was going to be an isolationist. He doesn't want to be the world's policeman. That means he doesn't want to support other countries with American military costs. But, when he went into Syria, that wasn't isolationism, but he didn't ask allies in advance. He didn't ask Congress in advance. He just did it. And he did it while Xi Jinping was having chocolate cake in Mar-a-Lago. Beautiful. That's a president that acts himself. And the Japanese, South Koreans, and Chinese are all now paying attention. I will say he is moving these countries politically. The Japanese decided to send a destroyer and other ships along with the American strike group right off the North Korean coast. The South Korean election coming up in a few weeks, it may well be that this North Korean crisis initiated by Trump is going to make a South Korean president be much closer to the U.S. and farther from China. It could actually swing the outcome of that election. And China is now saying they're more prepared to give a harder line on things like cutting off air travel, maybe cutting off oil exports to the North Koreans if they continue to escalate. So there's no question there are political impacts here.
It's certainly hard to enforce more sanctions when Kim Jong-un is willing to let his people starve. But if you could pull back out, zoom out, and look, as the last question to you, like I did with Charles Krauthammer, which is, from a geopolitical standpoint, when you look around the world, what does this look like now for Russia, Iran, or anyone else who might be wondering what Trump's foreign policy is going to turn out to be?
I think that you do have to recognize that the United States has a president that's much more willing to use military force precisely because that's the area where the United States is most uncontested by other countries around the world, with the exception of Russia. Russia, of course, is overwhelmingly not an economic power, not a diplomatic power, but a military and cyber power. And they were, interestingly, of course, one of the few governments that preferred Trump to Hillary Clinton. That feels like a long time ago. And now, of course, they have a very different perspective. That relationship has gotten only worse over the course of the last few weeks.
Ian Bremmer, thank you so much.